Hey guys, what's up? Gamer Dude back once again, still on our 90-day streaming ban. Still trying to dispute it, still trying to sort it out. I will keep you posted as that develops. But first things first, shout out to all subscribers, old and new. I really do appreciate your love and support in this time. Do appreciate your sticking with the channel whilst I get this sorted, or try to get this sorted. You guys have been so good to me through this, and I really do appreciate it. Thank you all so much. So this is just a little discussion video because given I'm banned from live streaming, it's all I can really do. It's about the South Park game franchise by Ubisoft. Now, we all know Ubisoft, we all know what they're like, locking everything behind a paywall, much like EA Games did. That's what I really want to talk about, and I really want to talk about if there's going to be a sequel to the game, to the Fractured Butthole, should I say, before the end of this year, or the start of next year, or just on next generation consoles, or if they're actually ever going to do one at all. So, I remember playing the Stick of Truth. The Stick of Truth was fantastic. It was brilliant. It kind of gave off like that Game of Thrones vibe. I liked it that much. It was just brilliant. I've played it so many times. I played it on the PS3 several times. Played it again on the PS4 several times. Even tried uploading it to the channel a while back when the channel was still in its infancy, but I didn't get very far because I realised the audio was crap, so I just stopped doing that. I did want to start a new series on it, however, my live streaming ban started, so... anyway, moving on. So after I played the Stick of Truth, I kind of immediately knew the sequel should be superheroes. So it was the Fractured Butthole, we got the superheroes. But what I didn't like about that was it kind of absconded from the actual original game. Like, you didn't get to keep any of your original gear. You didn't get to have any references whatsoever to the original game. You had to create your character all over again, so you couldn't just import your character over. And I think that was some wasted potential, really. I think that's something they really could have gone with. Like, they could have, if you didn't get the Stick of Truth with the Fractured Butthole, because you had to pre-order it to get it, so if you didn't get it with that, I think it would have been really cool if they actually allowed you to create a new character that way. But however, if you did get the Fractured Butthole with Stick of Truth with Fractured Butthole, sorry, I think they should have allowed you to cross over that character with some of the gear. Maybe not the weapons, because the weapons were a hella different in Fractured Butthole, and the weapons were just god-awful. But we'll talk about that a bit later on. But Superheroes was the obvious sequel to the Stick of Truth, because this Stick of Truth, it kind of followed on from an episode series they were doing, which was, as I said, very Game of Thronesy. So basically, what now? You know, there's so much content that they could bring from the episodes and put into a game. Like Imagination Land, for example, that was great. That I would love to see that in a game. Or the Guitar Hero episodes, that was great. I'd love to see that in a game, you know, with Heroin Heroes, things like that. Or maybe even the whole Red Dead Redemption thing that they're doing now in the episodes. You know, put that in a game. You know, something daft like that. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there. But yeah, anyway, it was clearly obvious that the sequel should be superheroes. And after these two games, I'm not too sure what they can do with the setting. I mean, the town can't exactly change that much, can it? The first game was open world-ish. Had a fast travel system, so I guess it counts as open world. The second game added a little bit more to the town, because it was obviously updated. The Stick of Truth came out in 2014, so basically what we had at the South Park town in Colorado was just what we'd seen on screen to that date. And Fractured Butthole came out in 2017, so we'd seen a lot more of the town in the episodes and extra little bits, even tiny little bits that they've put in and then not used again. That was incorporated into the Fractured Butthole. So I'm not too sure what else they can do with a new game as to the setting. If they did make a new game, if they kept the same setting, it would pretty much be the same, and it would be kind of boring if you think about it, because even if they put both maps together, which they technically did in Fractured Butthole anyway, it would still be the same game. I mean, there's not much, there's really nothing else they can expand on from that. But I guess the only one I can think of is good times with weapons and ninja settings in Stick of Truth. And with Fractured Butthole, it was the whole hey, let's go, Hikazu, the whole ninja thing every time you went into a battle. That was cool, I enjoyed that, that was fun. All the battles in this game, they were totally fun as well, with the buddy system and with the extra power-ups you got with the characters around South Park, like the Mr. Slave one was hella fucked up, but hilarious nonetheless. The best thing about one of the original game though was all the power-ups that you got in the battles, and the mana, the fart powers, the shit nuggets where you could throw pieces of shit at your enemies and they'd be grossed out, and the fact that you were confined to a set location in the fights. Fractured Butthole swapped this out a bit, and you could move around in the environment, the enemies could move around as well, and it wasn't practical, it wasn't as good as the first game when it came down to fighting mechanics, which really did kind of suck. So obviously in the first game we had Princess Kenny and the Chimp Pokemon, which would have an important part to play. Now that would be a little tricky on how to make it so the transformation into anime is well handled, as of course it would be a South Park game if the whole game they are in that imaginary format sort of thing. The second game was a bit of a letdown, if I'm honest. I did enjoy it, but I found myself getting bored of it very quickly, due to the fact it was postponed so many times as well. I think it was kind of overhyped, because I had it pre-ordered for about 2 years before it finally came out. That's how long we were waiting for the damn game. But I seriously think if they do make another game, they need to expand upon the first game. The fighting styles from the first game, the outfits from the first game, because the outfits in the second game were just pathetic and stupid. You got most of the outfit sets on your first go-round, whereas in Stick of Truth it took you a while to collect all the outfit sets because you needed a hell of a lot of money for them, let's be honest. Weapons in the second game were completely removed and replaced with superpowers. What I enjoyed about the Stick of Truth was like you could carry around that rod of boobage or a toilet plunger and just twat random citizens around the city. And the second game removed this, and you could only use and attack people if you're going into battle, which was again a bit of a wasted potential. It was it would have been cool to go around and attack people in the streets with laser eyes or some shit like that, whatever powers you got in the Fractured Butthole, as opposed to the first game where you could just walk around with a weapon and twat random citizens, which was always fun. They kept the same mechanic in the game as, well, in the second game as the first game, where if you came across enemies in the street, they would just automatically attack you. So at least they kept some originality to the game, well, to the original game. But the question now is, where does it go from there? How, there's not really anywhere Ubisoft can go with the game in general, or with anything in the future. But to me, it seems like Matt and Trey may follow a trend. That being, the story is centered around a 3-episode special maybe. The first game, Stick of Truth, was centered around the episodes of Black Friday. A song, Asses of Fire, so that came from the movie. Titties and Dragons. The Fractured Butthole, it was centered around the Coon and Friends, Mysterion Rises, Coon and Friends, and all that stuff, etc. So that being said, I predict if there is going to be another game, it will be centered around, as I said earlier in the video, the Imagination Land special, because that if they expanded upon that episode and put it into a game, that would be fantastic. Because imagine if you could transition between South Park, the town, and then bump into that really creepy, salty dude that looks like a rapist, and Butters even says, "Oh man, are you gonna rape us?" And he's like, "What?" You know, just bump into him and he takes you to Imagination Land, and you've got the whole cutscene of him singing Imagination. You know, yeah, that was kind of fucked up. But anyway, but if it's anything like the trend following, Imagination Land Special should possibly be the next game in the franchise for this year or 2020. Matt and Trey really haven't said anything about a future game, which is worrying considering how unsuccessful the Fractured Butthole actually was, because all the extra content in Fractured Butthole was locked behind an Ubisoft paywall, which was a kick in the testicles, because Stick of Truth, as opposed to Fractured Butthole, all the content was there in Stick of Truth. It was what we loved about the game, that you didn't have to buy any extra content, that all the weapons were there, they weren't locked behind a paywall, all the outfits were there, they weren't locked behind a paywall, all your perks and whatnot were there, they weren't locked behind a paywall. Whereas Fractured Butthole took a turn for the worst. If you wanted the best gear, it was locked behind a paywall. If you wanted an expansion to the story, it was locked behind a paywall. I, to this day, have not played the DLC to the Fractured Butthole, because I don't see the point, because one of the DLCs actually only lasts about 3 minutes. It's a cutscene and a fight and it's done. So why should I waste my hard-earned money on that? It's just not practical. But the second game was, as I've said, somewhat disappointing. But I don't think ratings mean anything to them anymore, because the South Park series has been going almost as long as the Simpsons series. And even though the Simpsons has dried up a little bit as of late, South Park really hasn't. They really do keep the jokes going with anything that's happening in modern day society. Like I said earlier, with the Red Dead Redemption jokes in recent episodes, they're keeping it in the loop. They're keeping it with what's happening today and what's happening now, which is really cool. I do have a pitch of an idea where it's South Park Revenge of the Canadians. Like, they expand upon the story that was in the South Park movie, and the Canadians get all pissed off and salty again with Colorado and America, and they start another war. Like, well, hang on a minute, we never really solved that war from before, we just kind of held hands and started singing. So, you know, if they expanded upon that, you know, called it Revenge of the Canadians, maybe that could work. I don't know, let me know what you guys think. But yeah, as I said, I really do think the future of the franchise will be based around any other episodes, like Imagination Land and things like that. I would really enjoy to see the Imagination Land story on a game. But I've recently been playing through the Stick of Truth again. I've not played Fractured Butthole, I just haven't bothered. And I'm still quite enjoying it, even though it's a couple of years old now. And it really does feel like, with the audio and the dialogue and the cutscenes, that I'm watching an episode of the show. So I read an interview with Trey Parker and Matt Stone where they said video games could be the future of South Park media, which is really cool. I would love to see something come out of it, you know, would be awesome. Because what exactly would the third game be about? Would it be an RPG one? Would it be a VR game? You know, we just don't know. But I seriously doubt games could be the future of the property, as the outreach just isn't as large as the shows. The shows get as many views as Family Guy and Simpsons and American Dad and things like that. Whereas they would really be taking a gamble if they bet it all on the games. Because Fractured Butthole didn't do very well. I do think they could release another movie. There is potential for another movie, but that's a video for another day. Just because I can't talk about the South Park movie. I'm not allowed. Copyright. Don't want to get in trouble again. So I honestly don't know how they could pull off a third entry anytime soon, as it feels like they've really tapped into the universe and everything they could reference wise with the last two games. But it's really gut-wrenching to think that it could be the Fractured Butthole could have been the last in the series, because if you think about it, the show can't last forever, and Matt and Trey are going to want to have a long-lasting legacy. Like Stan Lee, for example, his legacy, he is immortalized. He is in that many movies, that many cartoons, and that many games. He is forever immortalized on the screen, in life. He is just there no matter what. So the first game was obviously based around you being a total nobody, and the second was you being this big superhero, which again in turn led you to being a total nobody. So it's like you had to build up your friends list again like you did from the first game, and that it was just repetition, it wasn't practical. So let me know what you guys think. I would really love to hear your thoughts and views on this matter. Shout out to all subscribers, old and new, appreciate the love and support. I will keep you all posted and up to date on my streaming ban. Hopefully it will be sorted. Hopefully I'll be bringing you some content real soon, because I really want to do the Telltale game series. So yeah, that being said, this has been Gamer Dude, happy gaming, and I will catch you all real soon, I hope.